What's up YouTube, Stefano Turtle here, and today I am coming at you guys with my top 10 list of my 10 favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks from the time Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks were released to now, which is 2005 to all the way to 2018. With 13 generations, let's get straight into it. Here at the number 10 spot, as you can tell, is well is the structure deck Dragons Collide. Dragons Collide actually had a decent impact on the metagame in 2012 when it was released, and gave rise to a old concept of a deck with a newfound power due to cards like Light Pulsar Dragon and Dark Flare Dragon, and giving more viability to Eclipse Wyvern, allowing you to banish Darkness Metal Dragon and Dark Arm Dragon. You would be able to essentially make a fairly decent Chaos deck, which Chaos decks, by the way, were not a new concept by any means, due to the fact that in the GX era there were actually Chaos cookie cutter decks that managed to. I think there was one that managed to win Worlds, but this just touched up on a old deck and give it something new, and that's why it's at number 10. And sort of a shocking one for me at the number 10 spot, but I put it here mainly because it's just revising something new with a different taste. And then on to number 9, we have Structure Deck Gates of the Dark, like Gates of the Dark World Structure Deck, and this came out the year prior in 2011 and changed how Dark Worlds played immensely. Dark World would typically rely on the same strategy, of course, where you'd need to discard cards to get their effects off. However, um, with the release of Gates and I think the release of Dealings, they changed how this deck will play, giving you an extra way to draw a card and get your cards into the graveyard, especially Grapha, because Grapha could blow up anything, still can. And it would essentially just mean rip for your opponent if they did not have a way to out this, because, well, spell lineup was pretty decent, and the trap lineups were as well, including cards like Dark Scheme, which would, if your opponent wouldn't choose to negate, you could draw 2 by discarding 2. The Forces of Darkness, which let you recycle your Dark Worlds, so meant you could recycle cards like Snow, Ceruli, um, Kaiki, Rao, or Beige. Then you had a few of the virus cards, Deck Divi and Eradicator Epidemic. These two actually worked with this deck very well, especially Eradicator Epidemic, because not only did you have targets in Grappa, which was the easiest target, you also had a choice of Rainbow, or Rainbow, however you want to say it, which would special summon itself, destroy all your opponent's cards, or their spells and traps, and then you also had a target in Belal, and sometimes you'd have a target in Tragodia. Then you also had pretty good cards like Mind Crush, which would get rid of one of your opponent's cards, Dark Bribe to negate spells or traps, Transmigration Prophecy to recycle your cards. For your banished cards, Escape from the Dark Dimension, which recycled and summoned, and Dark Deal would discard any normal spell your opponent activated in a turn. It was pretty evil. And at number 7, we have a more recent structure deck, being the structure deck from 2016 that everyone got rage quitted about, because held off Pendulum Domination's release, which is Return of the Dragon Lords. And this one gave Belgran somewhat of a boost, but and yes, this is the Divine Dragon Lord Belgran structure deck, and it has some decent reprints and printed cards, but overall, it's not the best. I put it on here because Belgran was mainly used for dragon support, mainly for blue eyes and red eyes, and that's what everyone used it for, even me, being honest. So, yeah, it was mainly used for dragon support. Although you do have some chaos cards you can use, like Chaos Dragons, Light Swarms. There's a bunch of random cards you can use, such as Eclipse Wyvern, Wyvern Burster, Collapse Serpent, the Light Swarm cards, Charge. And don't get me wrong, Arcbrave Dragon and Belgran aren't weak cards, it's just their summoning requirements are a bit weird. On to structure deck number 6, we have Dinosaurs Rage. And, oops. This structure deck, being 100% honest, was the first structure deck I ever played back when I was 5. So, this had to be on the list for me. And this structure deck was just Dino Beatdown. That's all this was. It was actually a really fun structure deck to play with. Of course, now you really wouldn't be able to do much with it. And at the time, it had some really good reprints because this was before Heavy Storm was banned, and at the time, you were essentially just trying to beat your opponent down before. Or actually, no, it was anytime you could get out something big. This was like classic Yu-Gi-Oh era. Around that time into GX, and Superconductor Tyranno was one of the biggest cards to get around at that time, along with Ultimate Tyranno being able to attack all your opponent's monsters. However, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno was limiting with its effect being able to be the only card that could attack. And by the way, I'm going by this quick because I have school in the morning. But at number 5, we're already halfway through the list. We have the first structure deck to be introduced onto my channel in one of my earliest videos, being the structure deck Saga of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Finally, a structure deck with a extra deck monster. When I actually uploaded the video of me reviewing it in 2015, that was it was out of order, of course, and quite honestly, this was what got me into Blue Eyes. This was a year before all the Blue Eye support had got leaked, all the stuff like Alternative White, Spirit Dragon, White Stone of Ancients, Sage, and all that. This is before it became meta. Actually, this deck was in 2013. This structure deck was one of my favorites. After Dragon Roller format, I essentially stopped playing for a bit, and this deck brought me back into the game. And I tried to innovate and cultivate it excessive amount of times, so that's why this is at number 5, and it had some good printings at the time. You had some decent reprints. Blue Eyes was obviously one that was good. White Stone was a decent reprint. Maiden was a great card for the archetype at the time, which this was before Blue Eyes was actually an archetype. It just had support. So Maiden was one of those main support cards that helped the deck out in extreme amounts. You had cards like Shining Angel, which would actually let you summon Maiden from the deck when destroyed. And note, this came out in the early Zexal era. feel I should mention that. You had two really useful spell cards with that were new to the game within Dragon Shrine and Silver's Cry. Silver's Cry acting like another monster reborn for the deck, and Dragon Shrine letting you get two of your dragons into the graveyard, which I think when this deck came out, the main thing to do was like send Rabbit Dragon and then White Stone, because you get Blue Eyes and then you get your Rabbit Dragon, Silver's Cry the Rabbit Dragon, and you could essentially just go into more combos there. And then you also had another great few reprints in Trade-In and Cards of Consonance being more draw power, along with White Elephant's Gift. Two cards that are staples that were instantly reprinted were One for One and Monster Reborn. This was prior to it being banned back in late 2013 after Spellbook Dragon Ruler format, aka non-flashback format, and introduced a new monster that was actually extremely beneficial to the Blue Eyes archetype, being Azure Eyes. Azure Eyes being unable, making dragons unable to be targeted that you controlled with card effects, and unable to be destroyed. So your opponent tries to bottomless. Wait, no, your opponent. Let's say your opponent tries to mirror force to turn you summon it, and you have another dragon, and that means that dragon's not going away. So it was actually a pretty good deck at the time. Up at the number 4, we have the first deck of last year, which is Pendulum Domination. This deck was supposed to come out before Zodiac, but Zodiac came out a few weeks afterwards. If that wasn't the case, this deck would have been taking up spots in the meta, because this deck actually saw an extremely high amount of success in the OCG and gave just new cards to DDD that were extremely powerful, mainly being DD Lamia, and also gave you great reprints such as Dark Contract with the Gate, Dark Contract with the Swamp King, Forbidden Dark Contract with the Swamp King, Foolish, One for One, Dad, or Dark Armed Dragon as other people know it, Allure, and the 3 extra deck monsters it introduced. 2 of them actually were extremely powerful for DDDs, being Beowulf and Siegfried. If this deck had not been held back so long and actually came out before Zodiac, the year before Zodiacs were announced, this would have definitely seen some competitive play. So that's why it is at number 4. At number 3, we have the Elemental Hero structure deck, aka Masked Heroes, being a Hero Strike. This structure deck came out in about 2013/2014, I think it was 2014, and gave us some really powerful monsters in the form of the Masked Heroes. Mainly, what the objective of the goal of the deck was to manage to special summon Shadow Mist and get yourself a quick play like Mass Change 2, and utilize other cards in the deck as well to help summon your Masked Heroes, and eventually go into Chaos, like Contrast Hero Chaos here, which was a free negate. And essentially, you would just say, well, actually, this deck could just sit on Darkball alone and sit on it, because I think at the time, Light Swings were one of the more prominent decks. So this deck is definitely one of my favorites for that. Also, it's based after Jaden Yuki from the anime. That's another reason. On to number 2, we have. Okay, I messed up on order. Hero Strike is number 4. Samurai Warlords is number 3. This one came out around the early years of the Zexal era. Actually, this came out around the time Chaos Dragons one did, a bit later, I think. And this one actually had some, uh, well, this one didn't have a lot of competitive play, I think, but it was still a really cool structure deck to see, especially seeing as all the monsters follow the samurai um, theme. In fact, 19 of the 21 monsters are 6 samurai and Shien based cards, meaning they do fit into the archetype. The only two that don't are the Future Samurai here and the Immortal Bushi. Everything else fit into the archetype, and this deck had some really great reprints for the deck, like Six Samurai United, Gateway of the Six, Shien Smoke Signal, which I actually think was one of the newer cards that came out in this. But this deck essentially had 2 Rotas, a way to easily tutor out your 6 Sams with Kageki, and more monsters that were easy to summon from the hand, like Kizan and Grandmaster, and even had great cards like Rivalry of Warlords in it. So that is why this is at number 2. At number 1, we have a deck from this. This is number 3. At number 2, we have a deck from this year, being the Lair of Darkness structure deck. This deck is just virus control the deck, I swear. It is loads of fun. It is just a dark-based deck that relies on using traps and tributes. And the best thing about this deck is that with Lair, it generates a crapload of tokens. And dang it, I can't get it back. There we go. Seeing as a lot of the cards have tribute effects, such as Lilith, which is a quick effect, you could just use her to get a trap out of your deck and then just wait for your opponent's next turn to just activate it, especially if it was something devastating like Crush Card. And trust me, Crush Card was is extremely devastating to most decks. It also has some really good reprints too, with stuff you can use in Monarchs such as Vanity's Fiend. Oops, go back. Caius the Mega Monarch. Tour Guide and Rhino Warrior. Backjack and Karibos. Allure's always been a great reprint. It even reprinted all the virus cards, along with an edition of Green and Gray Virus, which was obviously the newest addition to the virus traps, but doesn't mean it's a weak one. It's actually probably one of the best, especially in combo with something like Different Dimension Ground. And this deck was just pretty good overall. I know it was overhyped in the TCG, but yeah, that's at number 2. On to number 1, we have Dino Smasher's Fury from 2016. This deck, I have to say, is probably the most powerful deck on this list, mainly being that you could literally just buy 3 of these, enter a tournament, and probably top. Because boss monsters like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno are dime in a dozen. This card is extremely powerful, has really easy summoning conditions, especially now with Overtext Coatulus and Double Evo Pill. You have cards to pop to help summon your dinosaurs, such as Baby Stegosaurus and Petty Pteranodon. Dinos have their own hand trap, which is Miscellaneousaurus. Had great reprints such as Tyranno Infinity. Finally gave us another normal dinosaur in the form of Megalo Smasher. Had another great reprint in the form of Rescue Rabbit, Fossil Day. form of Twin Twisters, which definitely had needed a reprint at the time. I think it still was only at 3 reprints, this being the cheapest reprint. Also had reprints of Quaking Mirror Force, Grand Horn of Heaven, and Secret Blast, which were amazing reprints. And Soul Eating Oviraptors, without a doubt, one card that might end up eventually being like in the OCG, where it's limited to 1, due to the fact that it is a 1 card Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. And this deck is probably one of the most powerful structure decks to ever be released into the TCG. So, yeah, that is my list. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And tell me what you would have liked to see on here. I'm open to opinions. And if you like, check out my other videos. Subscribe if you're new. And this is the Stefano Turtle signing out. Goodbye.